Yeah, so we can start by reading the 7
Uh,
realities. Neha ji, आप पढ़ेंगे? Can you see the screen?
but it's very small. Could you just, the font sizes, I'm not able to read this font size. It's very small.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rituals, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. The only real existence is that of the one and only God who is the self in every finite self. Second, now I can't read it. There's something is yes, thanks. Thanks. The only real love is the love for the infinity God, which is arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with the truth, God. Third is the only sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. Fourth, the only renunciation is the which abundance even in the midst of worldly duty, all sacrifice, thoughts, and desires. Fifth, the only real knowledge is the knowledge of God, is the inner dwell in good people and in so called bad, in saints, and also in sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demanded without expectations of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest rest of enmity or hatred, or try to make other happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for the each one, and to harm no one in thought, words, or deeds, not even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from the indulgence in low desires, in which alone ensures absolute purity of character. Seventh, the only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstances, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with the perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Thank you. So, uh, just a reminder to those on the call today. We are celebrating the first anniversary of being together in this group and reading Baba's books. So, requesting all of you to look at your messages and forward it and make sure we celebrate this in a big way. So, last time we stopped at selfishness, if you recollect. Selfishness is part of the love and ego pillar, the column. So, any questions, any thoughts from there before we continue?
What is that sound we are hearing? Some
Yeah,
quackness.
I don't know. I don't know whose mic is that. If it's mine, I'll have.
Fine.
Let me go to a different headset and see if it's mine. No, it's gone now, right? Is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. So I had one question which I had put up with Baba talks about a geometric analogy from geometry.
We can't hear you, Karthik.
We lost you, Karthik.
Okay, one second.
Your volume is very low.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I had one question that popped up when I re particular discourse, and that was an analogy where he talks about the circle and the radius to describe desires and their influence. I didn't understand that. So, would anybody want to throw light? And given our math professor, quantum physics guy is back, is he back? He can also throw some light. Kama, are you there? Let me try to pull that up.
If you can show us where you read this, I don't remember, but
Let's try to get it. It's right at the beginning of the chapter, I remember. Yeah, there it is. To use a geometric metaphor, we might say that when a desire passes into action, it traverses a distance that is equal to the radius of a circle, describing the boundary of the sanskaras connected with it. When a desire gathers, it projects itself into action to get fulfilled.
something is happening to your microphone.
Is it better? Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Very, very low, feeble.
There is a background sound.
Karthik, you have two logins simultaneously or something?
Yeah, we see two logins from
Right now or not?
The audio is very low.
Am I audible right now or not?
We can hear you, but it's still quite low. Yeah. Go ahead. I think this is quite okay right now. We can hear you. So, Kama, are you there?
Okay.
Would you like to explain Karthik's question?
Is it better now?
Yeah, Jai Baba. Okay. Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can
You're
hear
also
you.
breaking up. Okay, I can read this. Okay, all right. Let me read the whole paragraph to understand. With some of the desires, action is merely latent, but others can actually translate themselves into action. The capacity of a desire to find expression in conduct depends upon the intensity and the amount of sanskaras connected with it. To use a geometric metaphor, we might say that when a desire passes into action, it transverses a distance that is equal to the radius of circle describing a boundary of the sanskaras connected with it. When a desire gathers sufficient strength, it projects itself into action in order to get fulfilled. I think it's not, well, the thing is, if I may explain this, we have a lot of desires coming in the form of thoughts. And some desires they are without, if we don't put them into action, they fade away. Whereas if some desire has got a lot of strength, I want to do this, for example, and then you jump into action, you put the desire into action so that suppose I'm doing that, so I get gratification from acting on that desire. So I think he just compared the action, the person who is having a desire standing in the center of a circle and then acting, and it is traversing a distance that is equal to the strength of the strength of the sanskaras that go that far. That is what my take on it. Am I clear on that, or any question?
My understanding is that, Jai Baba, this is Kama. So my understanding here is that, sanskaras, which is thoughts create big sanskaras, words create strong sanskaras, and deeds create powerful sanskaras. So the metaphor out here that they use is basically to say that, as Baba said, thoughts are learned, prevent them, avoid them by using it. So we have no control on our thoughts because these are based on evolutionary sanskaras. But the choice we have as a human being is vivek and vairagya, discrimination. So when we have the wisdom of Baba, so we have a choice. So what happens is when people are addicted, it is because they have very powerful particular mode of action.
Kama, you're breaking up.
So we have Baba's blessings, and also we have. So when we have our own, when we use our own intellect, that is the Vivek and Discourses. Discourses is basically the how-to manual. So the point here is very simple, that very powerful sanskaras will make us, do the deed, but whereas weak sanskaras based on thoughts, they don't influence us to actually do the Jai Baba.
Perfect, Kama. Thank you so much. Very well explained. That's what I was thinking as well, but you put it in words very nicely. Thank you.
Can this be thought of like this, that the weak samskaras are thought process which does not translate into action, remains back in the mind, and then they get dissipated only when, say, the soul soars through the different planes from the gross to the subtle and then to the mental. So do we take that these samskaras remain forever till they pass through these planes, or they get dissolved once you do not act on them? How do we look at it?
See, when we get this, when the samskaras get activated, we have sanskaras, right? We have a lot of sanchita karma, a lot of sanskaras, accumulated sanskaras in the past. And we have to have a situation to get expression for these sanskaras to flourish. So if we don't have the situation, they stay dormant, latent there in that. But when you get a situation, and if you have a desire, if you don't put it to action, over time it gets worn off. That's my understanding.
Yeah, Jai Baba. Yeah,
towards ultimate action. Of course, if you have unintelligent action, you're again adding to your sanskaras. But I think this analogy could also be interpreted or can be correlated with the size of the circle or the size of the sanskaras. That's my understanding of this perspective. Jai Baba.
That's right, Ashok. Ashokji.
Think of me so much that your mind fails to think of anything else. That's what Baba's message is. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Beautifully put, Sanjay. That is the right path of
Yeah, that's Baba's message. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
I think we can go ahead reading.
Karthik, are you okay now?
Yeah.
You want me to bring up my?
Okay. Thank you for clarification. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. Can you hear me?
It's a bit patchy still,
Yeah.
but
Audible?
go ahead,
Can you
Karthik.
hear
Not
Yeah.
very clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's breaking up.
Yeah, I think Ravi or Sunil, why don't you read, please?
Raviji, would you like to take it up?
I seem to
Sure.
have,
Yeah.
I would love to.
Go ahead, please.
I seem to have data issues.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very-
So Ravi, why don't you read? Ravi, why don't you read? The chapter is on page number 35 on the digital copy, which is
Yeah, God and the individual, right?
God and the individual, page 16. So I'll stop
Yeah.
sharing.
I'm there. I hope I'm sharing my screen. Karthik, don't worry about sharing your screen.
Raviji, if you could make it a bit bigger, would be nicer.
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Jay Baba,
Yes,
I
correct,
wanted
perfect,
to
Ravi.
I wanted to put one suggestion. Did
Sure,
you
go
guys
ahead.
discuss how this chapter is relevant? Hello?
Yes,
What did you say, Kama? Kama, did you say something?
Yeah. Actually, Kama,
Hello?
a reminder. Can you hear me?
Okay.
We can't hear you
Okay.
either,
I'm going to
Karthik.
start reading God and the Individual, and when Kama or Karthik comes back, and I can stop and listen to what they were saying. Okay. Is that fair enough?
Let's
Yeah, Ravi,
start
proceed.
reading.
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah.
Okay. God and the individual.
Yeah.
God is the only reality. God is infinite. He is beyond the opposites of good and bad, right and wrong, virtue and vice, birth and death, pleasure and suffering. Such dual aspects do not belong to God. If you take God as one separate entity, he becomes one term in relational existence. Just as good is the counterpart of bad, God becomes the counterpart of not God. And the infinite comes to be looked upon as the opposite of the finite. When you talk of the infinite and the finite, you are referring to them as two. And the infinite has already become the second part of the duality. But the infinite belongs to the non-dual order of being. If the infinite is looked upon as the counterpart of the finite, it is strictly speaking no longer infinite, but a species of the finite. For it stands outside the finite as its opposite and is thus limited. Since the infinite cannot be the second part of the finite, the apparent existence of the finite is false. The infinite alone exists. God cannot be brought down to the domain of duality. There is only one being in reality, that it is the universal soul. The existence of the finite or the limited is only apparent or imaginary. Apparent existence of the finite. You are infinite. You are really everywhere, but you think that you are the body and therefore consider yourself limited. If you think you are the body which is sitting, you do not know your true nature. If you were to look within the experience your own soul in its true nature, you would realize that you are infinite and beyond all creation. However, You identify yourself with the body. The false identification is due to ignorance, which makes itself effective through the medium of the mind. An ordinary person thinks that he is the physical body. A spiritually advanced individual thinks that he is the subtle body. The saint thinks that he is the mind. But in none of them is the soul having direct self knowledge. It is not a case of pure thinking unmixed with illusion. The soul, the small soul as big soul, is infinite, aloof from mind or body, yet owing to ignorance. The soul comes under the sway of the mind and becomes a thinker, sometimes identifying itself with the body and sometimes with the mind. From the limited point of view of a person who has not gone beyond the domain of Maya, there are numberless individuals. It seems that there are as many individuals as there are minds and bodies. In fact, there is only one universal soul, but the individual thinks that he is different from other individuals. The one and the same soul is ultimately behind the minds of seemingly different individuals, and through them it has the multifarious experiences of duality. The one in the many comes to experience itself as one of the many. This is due to imagination of false thinking. Cause of false thinking.
Any discussion on
Thinking becomes false because of the interference
Here,
of sanskaras.
asking for a discussion, or Ravi?
Ravi, can we stop here, please?
Yeah, sure. Who was
Yeah.
saying something I could not
Thank you.
hear?
Mamaji said. Let's discuss
Mamaji,
this before we go further.
Mamaji, can you speak up? I couldn't
Yes,
hear
yes,
you.
yes,
Sorry.
yes, yes.
Thanks, Sherry.
There are two
Yeah, Baba.
observations here. One is in the top paragraph, an ordinary person thinks that he is the physical body, those who are in the gross sphere. A spiritually advanced individual thinks that he is the subtle body. As we go through the evolution process from the gross to the subtle, the saint thinks that he is the mind. So that is the traversing to the fifth plane. But none of them is the soul having direct, but in none of them the soul having direct self-knowledge. It is not a case of pure thinking unmixed with illusion. So this is how I look at it. And the last sentence in the second paragraph that you read now, the one in the many comes to experience itself as one of the many. So this is what we have to clearly understand. The one in the many comes to experience itself as one of the many, and you can see that the one is capital O. So
Yeah.
any
It's it's a
ideas on
beautiful
that?
line.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
God is
one in
there
the
in all
many
of us,
means
right?
God. Yeah,
Go ahead, Sanjay ji.
that's the play, the divine game. The one
Yes.
in many is trying to experience his in that fashion.
Yeah.
That's the whole the creation. Yeah, yeah, Baba.
That's the summary of all what we read till now. The
Yeah.
one in many comes to experience itself
Mm.
as one of the many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That defines the divine game. Yeah.
See, we have all this separateness, right? I'm separate from God. I'm separate from you. I'm different from all the other entities. That is existing because of identification with our body and mind. That exists, that ego exists until the sixth, final step of the sixth plane before entering into the seventh plane. That is where we need perfect master to flick that feeling of I-ness away. And once that is flicked off, but that can be done only when all the other sanskaras are cleared. Final step is to flick it off, that ego, that I am separate. Then once it is removed, then you feel oneness with the universal consciousness.
That is the false ignorance that Baba talks about, the false identification. This is the ignorance that we so nurse, the separateness and, the disparity of the oneness. That is the ignorance that Baba is talking about.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
I think we can go ahead, I think.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to stress on that point.
Yes. Very good point. See, that is what we have to remove, that one of many, right? I am one of many. And that is our thinking in the duality nature. But when we love Baba, our self becomes less and less, and we identify with the Baba. When the love becomes intensified, there won't be any more two entities here. I love you anymore. It is like it becomes one with that love. That is how the God feels, and that is where you get how to say this, unity with the reality.
Yes. You start feeling oneness with everyone,
Right.
because you see him everywhere. And so that's the oneness that we call as ekatva in Hindi. Ekatva. Yeah. Jai Baba.
That's the merging.
I just wanted to add. So can we just summarize it as moving from duality to singularity?
Yeah, go ahead, Ashokji.
I'm saying, can we summarize it as moving from duality to singularity?
Exactly.
Oneness.
Yeah.
Oneness, unity. Yeah.
Oneness.
Yeah, unity or singularity. Or
Yeah.
or unity.
See,
That's
Baba is ready to give us God realization any time. His grace is there all the time. But only thing is, we should be ready to receive that. We are not ready. That is the problem.
Yeah. You have to break open the roof.
Yeah.
His message is there.
We don't say we are not ready. We are on the path. We are trying to be ready here. That is what we are doing for the last 1 year.
Of course.
Okay. Let's have positive commitment.
Positive energy.
Yes. Okay, you can go ahead, read.
I just remember a story. Eric Nadel, not Eric Nadel. There's one more doctor that was, I don't know whether he's still there in Mehrabad or not. He's some European or American. He used to work with that lady from France. So what's her name?
I think you don't think is better.
Ellen.
No.
But anyway, he was taking care of Mast Muhammad. And at one time, can you mute, please? There you go. Thank you. So that the doctor was taking care of Mast Muhammad, and one time he asked Muhammad, can you take me to the fifth plane, your level of consciousness? And Muhammad was in a good mood, and he said, okay. And this doctor started feeling all this transformation into, going through, seeing a lot of big light and all that stuff. And after a few minutes, the doctor said, bring me down. He had to shout. So Muhammad brought him down. So unless we are ready to that levels, we cannot go there. That is the small story I thought of.
Yeah.
Cause of false thinking. Thinking becomes false because of the interference of sanskaras accumulated during the process of evolution of consciousness. The function of consciousness is perverted by the operation of sanskaras, which manifest themselves as desires. See, this is an important sentence here. The function of consciousness is perverted by the operation of sanskaras, which manifest themselves as desires. Through many lives, consciousness is continually being burdened by the after effects of experience. The perception of the soul is limited by these after effects. The thinking of the soul cannot break through the hedge created by sanskaras, and consciousness becomes a helpless captive of illusions projected by its own false thinking. This falsification of thought is present not only in cases where consciousness is partly developed, but also in man where it is fully developed. Scope of full consciousness. The progressive evolution of consciousness from the stone stage culminates in man. The progressive evolution of consciousness from the Stone Age culminates in man. The history of evolution is the history of a gradual development of consciousness. The fruit of evolution is fully consciousness, which is characteristic of man. But even this full consciousness is like a mirror covered by a dust. Owing to the operation of sanskaras, it does not yield clear and true knowledge of the nature of the soul. Though fully developed, it yields not truth but imaginative construction, since its free functioning is hindered by the weight of the sanskaras. Moreover, it cannot extend beyond the cage created by its desires and therefore is limited in its scope. Individualization of consciousness. The boundary in which consciousness can move is prescribed by the sanskaras, and the functioning of consciousness is also determined by the desires. As desires aim at self-satisfaction, the whole consciousness becomes self-centered and individualized. The individualization of consciousness may, in a sense, be said to be the effect of the vortex of desires. The soul gets enmeshed in the desires and cannot step out of the circumscribed individuality constituted by these desires. It imagines these barriers and becomes self-hypnotized. It looks upon itself as being limited and separate from other individuals. It gets entangled in individualistic existence and imagines a world of manifold separateness composed of many individuals with their respective minds and bodies. Separateness exists only in imagination. Stop me whenever you want to have a discussion, just let me know. When the rays of the sun are made to pass through a prism, they get dispersed and become separate because of the refraction. If each of these rays had consciousness, it would consider itself as being separate from the other rays, forgetting entirely that at the source and on the other side of the prism, it had no separate existence. In the same way, the one being descends into the domain of Maya and assumes a multiplicity that does not in fact exist. The separateness of individuals does not exist in reality, but only in imagination. The one universal soul imagines separateness in itself. And out of this division, there arises the thought of I and mine as opposed to you and yours. Although the soul is in reality an undivided and absolute unity, it appears as being manifold and divided owing to the working of its own imagination. Imagination is not a reality. Even its highest flight, it is a departure from truth. It is anything but the truth. The experience the soul gathers in terms of the individualized ego is all imagination. It is a misapprehension of the soul. Out of the imagination of the universal soul are born many individuals. This is Maya or ignorance. Side by side with the birth of the separate and the limited individuality, there also comes into existence.
Can we stop here and have some ideas on this individualization of consciousness? So how actually the duality comes from the singularity, as Ashok has put it up. That is explained here. So individualization of consciousness may in a sense be said to be the effect of vortex of desires. So how do we understand this? It looks upon itself as being limited and separate from other individuals. So how one way I look at it is the BIM as it appears makes a big bang and then creates a lot of drop zones, and these drop zones start say they are covered with a bubble, no, that is the sanskara. First sanskara is who am I. So each one thinks who am I, and then that is the starting point for the sanskaras to come up. And each bubble thinks in a different way, and each attracts or accumulates lot of its own sanskaras, and that I-ness starts appearing. This is how I have looked at these things. And that separateness starts with the BIM process and goes on through the whole of evolution. And unless we get rid of these sanskaras and the I-ness, that unitary feeling with the oversoul never happens. So any ideas from others?
Yes, Mamaji, that's right.
Mamaji,
Yeah.
I think it's basically to each his own. As as Kama has put it, different strokes for different folks, because the level of our sanskaras and the number of sanskaras we are shrouded with is different for everybody. Although we have the soul, the inner soul is same, but for each individual, his sanskaras are different, and that is why we feel that everybody is different. That imagination comes up.
Yes.
Is the load, is the quantity and the intensity of different sanskaras in different individuals is what I can think of.
Yeah.
Does the
There was
sanskara rule the false identification and imagination, or is it the other way around, that the false identification and imagination is what is evolving the sanskaras? Because of
Yes, yes,
sanskaras, are we going to be individuals, or because we think ourselves to be as individuals, the false bubble is what makes the sanskaras?
the first false imagination itself was the first sanskara, right?
Exactly.
So and the cycle just starts actually. So yes,
So there
it's
is
one
no
after the
different
other.
folks. There is
Yeah. The
different folks.
yes, it's
It's
the
all one.
same thing
The
of
idea of
one coin.
different
It's
strokes.
a
Yeah.
different sides of the same coin actually. And there was a very powerful sentence in the previous paragraph. The the process of the process of evolution is the is
Is this the one you're talking about? The progressive evolution of consciousness?
no, there was the process of evolution is the progressive revelation of the consciousness, something like that sort. Yeah.
The history of evolution is
Yeah.
the history of gradual development of
Yes.
consciousness.
Yes. This is the one. Yeah.
But even this full
Very powerful.
consciousness is like a mirror covered by dust. That is the samskara.
Yes.
So now, give me a chance to read two sentences together, one after the other. The one in many comes to experience itself as one of the many. Next sentence I would like to read is the last sentence of the out of the imagination of the universal soul are born many individuals. This is Maya or ignorance. So these two sentences we have to keep thinking of together. The one in the many comes to experience itself as one of the many. And out of the imagination of the universal soul, that one, are born many individuals. This is Maya or ignorance.
Yeah. That's right.
So, Mamaji, we need to control our imagination rather than trying to undo the sanskaras.
Yeah.
The imagination is what is creating everything. The false identification.
sometimes I feel it like God only created this whole imagination and he wants started the game and he wants us to stop the game and go back. It's that, it's just playing with the his own creation. Jai Baba.
Yes, that's why in God Speaks always he says God, God. So he always refers to man also as God, no? So we are all God.
Yes.
We need to realize that. That's all.
So what is the meaning of this sentence here? The individualization of consciousness may be, in a sense, to be said to be the effect of the vortex of desires. What is vortex of desires mean?
So, because one desire after another desire after another, it never stops actually. So, and that it creates more and more individualization of consciousness. We feel more and more separated as we get enmeshed with more and more and more of desires. That's what I understand. Yeah.
Yes, that's why earlier we had read that the only solution is drop desires. So there was one sentence which I stressed in the previous readings, drop desires. So the ultimate aim should be to drop desires.
So the life of indulgence, Baba has said in, as we keep indulging, the life of keeping ourselves away from indulgence is much better than, because you cannot exhaust a desire by indulging in that desire. So that's the vortex. Whatever it is, food, money, lust, whatever.
That's why I dropped drinking alcohol these days. I used to drink a lot. Since summer I came, we used to do every day, right? I didn't feel good about drinking and then attending the discourses.
You are divinely drunk now. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you're audible.
Oh, good. Okay,
perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I looked around and found the best spot to keep the mobile phone for maximum signal. So I think signal was the issue. Anyway, so keep going.
Okay, Karthik, I will hand over my regime.
No, keep going. You keep going. I just want to test my audio and test my stuff. So keep going. I have some things to say, but that's at the end of the chapter. Keep going.
Okay. Over here, separateness exists only in imagination, right? See, everything is imagination. Everything what we do, but sometimes we think I'm doing this. That's not imagination. But everything is an imagination. Somebody, says that you're a fool. I'm conditioned to retort that. I'm conditioned, and I have a understanding that somebody calls you fool, that means it's bad. So, but whereas I'm good is contradicting my condition of being good, great. So that's why I get angry. But that's an imagination, correct? Even the
Yeah.
getting
So
angry is also imagination.
yeah, basically everything starts with an imagination. Any action we do also starts with an imagination. If I have to cook something, that first the thought has to come, or I have to eat something or go somewhere. So everything starts with an imagination.
Even the
So
Imagination.
desires
whatever
are
is the result of the
imagination.
yeah.
Even desire is an imagination,
Yes.
because you imagine that this act will satisfy me in this
Yes.
manner. So
Yes.
desire also comes under imagination.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Imagination is the problem for us.
yes.
I think this is a very profound line. The separateness of individuals does not exist in reality, but only in imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, we have
I,
finished this paragraph. So
we
start
finished this
from
paragraph. Yeah.
side by side.
Right. This is what Mamaji is talking about.
Yeah.
Out
So
of the
start
imagination of the universal soul are born many
many.
individuals. This is Maya or ignorance. That's right. So side by side, shall I proceed or any more I
Yeah,
want to have
please go ahead.
discussion? See, mine, I just want to bring I and mine is also imagination, right? The money I have in my bank is an imagination. More money I have, I'm satisfied. The actual thing is, how much money do I take and spend it for living? That only matters. How much money we have in the bank is an imagination.
Yeah, I keep telling everybody, money is only virtual. It's imaginary. Bitcoin is
Imagine.
real. Trust me.
Yes.
Walk on some coins.
My future son-in-law is into cryptocurrency. He works for a company that he deals with the cryptocurrency. He talks all the time about it. Uh, Interesting.
Okay, we can continue from side by side, please.
Side by side with the birth of the separate and limited individuality, there also comes into existence the objective universe. As the limited individuality has separate existence, not in fact, but only in imagination. The objective universe also has no independent and separate reality. It is the one universal self appearing in the second role of manifestation through, through these attributes. When the soul descends into the domain of Maya, it takes upon itself the limitation of manifold existence. This self-limitation of the soul might be looked upon as its self-sacrifice on the altar of consciousness. Although it eternally remains the same infinite absolute, it suffers a kind of timeless contraction through its apparent descent into the world of time, variety, and evolution. What really evolves, however, is not the soul itself, but only the consciousness which, because of its limitations, gives rise to the limited individuality. Triple entanglement and duality. The history of the limited individuality is a history of the development of a triple entanglement with mind, energy, and matter, body. Duality prevails in all these domains, and the soul gets entangled therein, although it is in essence beyond duality. Duality implies the existence of opposites limiting and balancing each other through mutual tension. Good and bad, virtue and vice are examples of such opposites. The ignorant soul, enmeshed in duality, is in the clutches of good, both good and bad. The duality of good and bad arises due to ignorance. But once entangled with it, the soul becomes under its sway. See, this is an important sentence. The duality of good and bad arises due to the ignorance, but once it is entangled with it, the soul comes under its sway. That is what we are in.
Raviji, can you just read the last line of the last paragraph?
Previous paragraph or same paragraph?
Yes. No, previous paragraph.
Oh. What really evolves, however, is not the soul itself, but only the consciousness, which, because of its limitations, gives rise to the limited individuality.
Can somebody explain this?
I think this is a take on the evolution itself, right? So though our immediate identification is with the matter that evolves, that is basically from the stone form and to the human form. But what is evolving actually is the consciousness, because it evolves from the lowest form of consciousness to the highest form of consciousness, which is in the human form. And because of the limitations, which we read about earlier, which is the sanskaras and desires, it gives rise to the individualization. That is the limited individuality. That's my understanding. And by the way, if you notice in the audio file, Don Stevens points out that Baba talks about stone being the first form, but then if you go to God Speaks, where he starts from the gaseous forms, right? So that's another distinction that we should keep in mind. In this discourse, he's talking about stone as the first one, as the lowest form of consciousness, but it's actually gaseous. And then I think God Speaks, of course, gives a better glimpse of the idea of samskara, right? The weakest, faintest to the strongest, supported by the fabric of consciousness, which evolves, right? Yeah. Ashok, did I confuse you further, or did it help?
No, it's okay.
I think the stone is for the gross conscious people like us, because they can see it. Actually. Because gases and beyond gases is difficult to imagine, So for the common masses,
Yes.
So here what we love to understand is that soul is the constant thing. So the drop soul coming out of the BIM process remains the same, but what develops is the consciousness, and that consciousness development is clouded or is covered with all the different sanskaras into individualization, and then after realization, this is totally lost and the soul goes back to the oversoul. So soul remains as it is. It doesn't change. It is a constant entity. Jai Baba.
Perfect. If I may just add, the drop soul identification itself is with the individualization. What we just read in the last two paragraphs, the sanskaras create the idea of this drop soul. Otherwise, the bigger statement is the soul remains unchanged, right from before Vim till post involution seventh plane, whatever. Right, the soul remains absolutely unchanged. In fact, there is only one soul. Ravi, continue, G.
Okay. During the evolution of triple entanglement with matter, body, energy, and mind, The ignorant soul is continually in the grip of wanting. It wants the good and bad of the gross world. It wants the good and bad of the subtle world. And it wants the good and bad of the mental world. And owing to its distinction of good and bad, wanting itself becomes good and bad. Wanting thus comes to be inevitably limited by the perpetual tension of the opposites. This gives rise to the unending oscillation from one state to another without arriving at the unlimited state, which can only be discovered in the unchanging, eternal aspect of life. The infinite is to be sought beyond the domain of duality. This becomes possible only when consciousness can emerge from the limited individuality by breaking through the barriers of sanskaras. Chasm between consciousness and unconscious. Chasm means split, right? Break, right? Chasm. If I remember right, that is the ground breaks, right? In the floor when it cracks as the chasm.
Raviji, chasm is an empty space. Like you have a chasm when the glaciers break or something. It's an empty space.
Oh, empty space? I see. Why am I thinking it's a break, whatever? Probably, yeah. We have seen that the possible field of consciousness is limited by the sanskaras. This limitation creates a division of the human psyche into two parts. One part falls within the range of consciousness, and the other part falls beyond it. The unconscious part, in its full extent, is identical with the power that is behind matter. It is referred to as God by the Orthodox religions. The ultimate reality, which is symbolically represented through such concepts, can be known fully only by bringing the unconscious into consciousness. An extension of consciousness consists in being conscious of that which was formerly a part of the unconscious. The progressive conquest of the unconscious by the conscious culminates in consummate consciousness, which is unlimited in scope and unhindered in function. Let me read that again. Little confusing. An extension of consciousness consists in being conscious of that which was formerly a part of the unconsciousness. The progressive conquest of the unconsciousness by the conscious culminates in consummate consciousness, which is unlimited in scope and unhindered in function. Between the highest state of consciousness and the limited through full consciousness of average humanity, there are about 49 degrees of illuminated consciousness. They mark the important stages of growing illumination. See, this sentence bothered me a lot for a long time. What are these 49 degrees? And later on, when we were reading the beams, he explained there are 7 stages between each plane. So there are 7 planes, so 7 times 7, 49. That was explained by Kama very beautifully. So if anybody can explain this sentence, I'm confused with this. Consummate consciousness, which is limited.
I think this whole paragraph is a sort of a concise story of the stage A and B. Karma can come in here. So the stage which is conscious and then the stage which is unconscious. So the conscious remains as it is, but the unconscious goes through the whole process of evolution, involution to become conscious. So when it becomes conscious, that is the consummate consciousness. So the unconscious going through this process of evolution, involution, rids itself of all the desires or the, say, wants and other things, then becomes totally available, and then that becomes the unites with the consciousness.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that
Culminates in
is known as consummate
consummate
consciousness.
consciousness. I think that is God
That's how
Beautiful,
realization.
Mamaji. Beautiful, Mamaji. Beautiful.
Yeah, very
Mamaji,
well.
beautiful.
Thank you. It
I
culminates. That
think
is God realization he's talking about. Consummate
ah,
consciousness. Culminates. Yeah. Okay. Very
so
good.
this
Thank
why this 49 degrees? I don't know why this 49 degrees. Maybe what is God speaks. What I imagine is why Baba always says that man as addresses man as God. God is we are 51% God already. 49% covered by sanskaras and desires and other things. So we have to remove that and then become 100%. That is the progress that we have to do. That's how I imagine this. So any other inputs regarding this will be welcome. Kama can also come in and put his
we read
technical
Mamaji
explanation
in Beams. Mamaji, we read in Beams that 7 planes are there, right? In the involution. From one plane to other plane, there are 7 stages. That's what Baba said there. So 7 times 7, 49 degrees or 49 stages.
So when we take it as 49, so we are already 51. That's why we have to think always that we are God. We are 1 plus after 50. So the lesser, the rest of the 49 we have to achieve or remove and then become 100.
Yeah.
That is consummate consciousness.
Let's say we are all in the gross plane. We still have to cross this 49 stages.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused about the 51, but I did
that is
get
my
the reference
imagination. In my duality, that is my imagination. So I feel I am 51 God, 49 covered with sanskara.
Okay.
So I have to remove this 49 to become 100 God.
Mama's God speaks.
Yes.
Mamaji, on a lighter
Anyway,
note,
on page 12 of Beams.
Huh?
Yeah, on page 12 of Beams, it's he's actually says there are 49 steps in the ascent through the planes. The human mind delights in perceiving and creating symmetry and proportion everywhere, but this tendency should not be carried into the realm of facts. The 49 steps in the path are not evenly distributed within the 7 planes. They are distinguished from each other because of their distinguished psychic characteristics, although they have also structural equivalents in the subdivisions of the 7 planes. So 7 planes, 7 steps in each, but not evenly distributed.
Yes.
And I think we should add this reference into fellow. I will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Ashok, you were saying something.
Yeah, which page is that? Karthik?
Page
Beams?
12 of Beams.
No, I was just saying on a lighter note, who knows, Mamaji might be even at a higher percentage, maybe 70% already.
God realized. He's already God realized.
Okay, maybe, okay, God realized, that means 100%. Okay.
Yes.
He is 100%. He's not. He's going through the process of conscious discovery. That's all.
That's it. Yes.
All of us in this call
like
are.
a human being.
That's only a very lighter note. Okay, anyway.
Maybe some clinical explanation or a technical explanation from Kama would be welcome here. He is very silent.
Kama has the technical problems today. Kama, where are you today? Are you back in Chennai or Tamil Nadu?
Jay Baba.
Where are you, Kama?
No. Can you hear me first? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Jay Baba, I'm back in Dehradun after a 7-day trek, which was very nice. Okay, I think this particular paragraph is very, very, it's a very, actually, one should have also read the succeeding paragraph because it continues. But since we are discussing this, let me go through each line. See, we have seen that the possible field of consciousness is limited by sanskaras, which we know. This limitation creates a division of the human psyche into two parts. One part falls within the range of consciousness and the other part it.
Kama, your audio is bad.
And the sub. Oh.
Okay, I will read Kama for you again. Okay.
Oops.
Hold on, let me try to come out.
No, just look at the towers. You should get 4 or more. Then it improves the call. That's what I did.
Okay, all right. That's
just move around.
Good point.
Yeah, move
Let me try
around and
that.
find a spot. Yeah.
Where are you, Karthik?
Okay,
are
how
you
is it now?
Or somewhere else?
Yeah, better, Kama.
Karthik, you
Okay.
never had any problem, right, before?
So
yeah, I'm not at home.
so
I'm
my-
outside. I'm in Coorg.
Oh, vacationing?
Workation.
Workation. More than a year since we took a vacation.
Kama, can you try now? If
While
it doesn't
trying,
work,
I'm
we'll
trying to get 3 bars. I'm getting only.
Yeah,
okay. Let me read for you, okay? While you're searching for the signal, we have seen that the possible field of consciousness. We have seen that the possible field of consciousness is limited by sanskaras. This limitation creates a division of the human psyche into two parts. One part falls within the range of consciousness, and the other part falls beyond it, beyond the consciousness. So one thing we have to understand is the consciousness is aware as much as we have knowledge, right? Each individual, each of us, wherever we stand on the spiritual knowledge, that is what the consciousness is at. And the other part falls beyond that. The unconscious part in its full extent is identical with the power that is behind matter. It's interesting. Again, I'll read it again. The unconscious part in its full extent is identical with the power that is behind matter. It is referred to as God by the Orthodox religions. The ultimate reality, which is symbolically represented through such concepts, can be known fully only by bringing the unconscious into consciousness. That means we'll realize that only when we get God realization. That's what I understand. An extension of consciousness consists in being conscious of that which was formerly a part of the unconsciousness. The progressive conquest of the unconscious by the conscious culminates in consummate consciousness, which is unlimited in scope and unhindered in function. Between this highest state of consciousness and the limited, though full consciousness of average humanity, there are about 49 degrees of illuminated consciousness. They mark the important stages of growing illumination. Is it clear to everyone? Any questions? I think I got some clarity here. All right, shall I continue to read?
Yeah, Kama, did you get 3 bars? Then you can try. Otherwise, we'll continue reading.
Maybe he didn't. Go ahead, Ravi.
Okay. Spiritual advancement.
Jay Baba, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, much better. Go ahead.
Okay. So there might be some dogs barking. Sorry about that. Okay. The way I have understood this particular paragraph, see, the field of consciousness can be divided into two. One is the which we are in the subconscious consciousness. And if you remember, in the past, we read the mind is like an iceberg. Only 1/7 is visible. That 1/7 is consciousness. 6/7 consciousness. So what that part we should try to interpret
Srikama is still not available. The audio.
consciousness. Now this
Yes.
unfortunately. Hello, can you
right.
hear me now?
No.
We can hear you when you're talking. It's breaking up. That's the problem. Yeah.
This is actually first time. The audio is having issue. Am I audible?
Send it as a file.
All right. I'm going to read.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
please go ahead.
we'll
Kama, put up an audio
Yes,
file
later, because
file at the end of the meeting, please.
That's not very good. So
Please. Kama, here's a request. Please record an audio message, which you can post to the group, both on Telegram and Teams after the call. Thank you.
Okay. That's
because
a
what
good
you're
idea.
saying
Very
is
good idea.
important.
Yeah.
Yes, we
All
can
right. Okay.
go ahead, read
Good idea.
next time.
The gulf between the clouded consciousness of average humanity and the fully illuminated consciousness of a perfect master is created by the sanskaras that give rise to egoism. These can be removed through perfect character, devotion, and selfless service. Egoism, right? These can be removed through perfect character, devotion, and selfless service. But the best results in this direction are attained through the help of perfect master. Spiritual advancement consists not in the further development of consciousness, for it is already fully developed in man, but in the emancipation of consciousness from the bondage of sanskaras. Interesting. Although in essence, consciousness is the same in all the different states of existence, it can never be consummate unless it can reflect the knowledge of infinity without the least shadow of ignorance, and also cover the wholly extent of creation, illuminating the different spheres of existence. But here is my question about this paragraph. Let's say once we evolve from animal to human, and then our evolution of consciousness is complete. But even from that state, to get into the spiritual path, we still have to evolve, right? We have to learn patience, tolerance, ability to read, ability to grasp, ability to exercise our intellect, ability to understand all these aspects. We have to get proficiency in that. If at all we are reading discourses and trying to understand, we have had some background of it. So what I'm thinking is there is still, even though consciousness is evolved, still it has to reach the maturity before we can step into the spiritual world. Any comments on that?
It is only the removal of the veil, as it is stressed everywhere. Consciousness is full and full in glory in human form, but only that 49 degrees of it is totally covered with the sanskaras, the veil of the sanskaras. So that is why we see the term illumination is used. once you say remove the veils, you get lot of light coming in. That is illumination. So if you remove all the veils, you are totally in the illuminated sphere. So the consciousness which is fully available in the human form is covered with sanskaras because of the evolutionary process and reincarnation. That needs to be totally removed with awareness. That is, we are getting to know about it. That is our awareness that we are covered with sanskaras. With that awareness, we start thinking of how to remove these sanskaras. So that is the process of your path or movement in the path of the spirituality. So as you remove all these veils, your consciousness, which is already 100%, will be available to realize ultimate. That's how I look at it. So I don't say consciousness needs to mature. That term I don't think suits here. That is my idea. Jai Baba.
Mamaji and others, if I can add, I think it's the key word is emancipation of consciousness from the bondage of sanskaras. The line which is there.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Yes.
think that line we need to highlight. The spiritual advancement consists not in the further development of consciousness, for it is already fully developed in man, but in the emancipation of consciousness from the bondage of samskaras.
Right on, Karthik. Right on.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have marked it as a circle here. And the steps in the path, as mentioned here, is perfect character, devotion, and selfless service. So these are the three things that we have to practice. And also we need the ultimate help of a perfect master.
Mamaji, can you elaborate or highlight selfless service?
I think that will come later in one of the
Okay.
chapters. So, so that
It's
needs a
coming
lot
up.
of.
There's a full chapter. You're right. Yes.
Yes. I think these two paragraphs are very, very profound and gives the foundation ideas about all this. Say here, if you see the whole chapter till now, uh, we are coming into the picture of, say, individualization and then getting out of this individualization, how to, and becoming God ultimately. The whole chapter is treated like that. As we go through, we will understand that.
Indeed.
So I'll
You can continue, Ravi. Yeah, please.
Every time you go to sleep, you are unconsciously united with the infinite reality. This unification involves the extension of unconsciousness over consciousness. It thus bridges over the chasm between the unconsciousness and the consciousness. But being unconscious of this union, you do not consciously derive any benefit from it. This is the reason why, when you wake up again from deep sleep, you become aware of the self-same humdrum individual. And you begin to act and experience exactly as you acted and experienced before going to sleep. If your union with the Supreme Reality had been a conscious union, you would have awakened into the completely new and infinitely rich life. And also, perfect masters don't sleep. So once you are awakened, you don't have to sleep. It's only human beings sleep. A perfect master is consciously united with the infinite reality. In his case, the chasm between the consciousness and unconsciousness is bridged not by the extension of the unconscious over the conscious, as with the person who enjoys deep sleep, but by the extension of consciousness over unconsciousness. I'm going to read this again because little word In his case, a perfect master is consciously united with the infinite reality. In his case, the chasm between the consciousness and unconsciousness is bridged, not by extension of the unconsciousness over the conscious, as with the person who enjoys the deep sleep, but by the extension of consciousness over unconsciousness. The waxing and waning of consciousness is applicable only to the limited individual. In the case of perfect master, the conquest of the unconscious by the conscious is final and permanent, and therefore his state of self-knowledge is continuous and unbroken, and remains the same at all times without any diminution. From this you can see that the perfect master never sleeps in the ordinary sense of the word. When he rests his body, he experiences no gap in his consciousness. The state of perfection. In the state of perfection, full consciousness becomes consummate by the disappearance of all obstacles to illumination. The conquest of the unconscious by the conscious is complete, and the person continuously dwells in the full blaze of illumination or as one with illumination. He becomes illumination itself. See, this is important. He becomes illumination itself. As long as a person remains under the sway of duality and looks upon manifold experience as being true and final, he has not traversed the domain of ignorance. In the state of final understanding, a person realizes that the infinite, which is one without a second, is the only reality. The infinite pervades and includes all existence, leaving nothing as its rival. A person who has such realization has attained the highest state of consciousness. In this state, the full consciousness, which is the fruit of evolution, is retained, but the limitations of the sanskaras and desires are completely transcended. The limited individuality, which is the creation of ignorance, is transformed into divine individuality, which is unlimited. The limitable consciousness of the universal soul becomes individualized in this focus without giving rise to any form of illusion. The person is free from all self-centered desires, and he becomes the medium of the spontaneous flow of the supreme and universal will, which expresses divinity. Individuality becomes limitless by the disappearance of ignorance. Individuality becomes limitless by the disappearance of ignorance. As it is unimpaired by the separateness of Maya and unentangled in its duality, it enjoys the state of liberation in which there is objectless awareness, pure being, and unclouded joy. Such a person has no longer any of the illusions that perplex and bewilder man. In one sense, he is dead. The personal ego, which is the source of the sense of separateness, has been forever annihilated. But in another sense, he is alive forevermore with unconquerable love and eternal bliss. He has infinite power and wisdom, and the whole universe is to him a field of his spiritual work of perfecting mankind. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Jai.
Very nice chapter.
This once again here deep sleep and the perfect master's conditions are very well clarified. So in deep sleep, unconsciousness clouds over consciousness. extension of unconsciousness over consciousness is sleep in the ordinary human being. Whereas in case of a perfect master, he has gone through the process of the spiritual evolution and involution, and his unconsciousness is covered by consciousness, not the other way around. So he is totally conscious because his unconsciousness portion is covered with the consciousness. So because of that, he need not sleep also. He doesn't sleep at all. He is always awake. That is the thing we'll have to clearly understand between these two paragraphs. Any insights on that?
Mamaji, it is a little intriguing because we haven't reached that stage, or we haven't experienced it. Not the question of reaching that stage. We have never experienced that. When we go to sleep, we we are in the gross body. So this is a little intriguing for the human mind to conceive something which we have not experienced.
Yes, we will experience when we become Sadgurus. Till that time we'll have to struggle. So go through the path.
All I'm saying
unfortunately, it is not a when, but if it is a if. Mamaji, it is not a when, but it is a if.
If. No,
because
when.
Some of us
No,
could
I
just
am
get
hopeful
OM.
when, not if.
No, I agree with when.
Some of us, academically speaking, it is only a if, because some of us could end with OM, with ordinary mukti, and never get to come back. Anyway.
So here there are a few terminologies which I have rounded off. I will just read through them.
Please.
Consummate. So what we read as consummate consciousness comes up once again here. And the other one, he becomes illumination itself. Perfect master or one who has totally realized. He becomes illumination itself. That is the seventh plane. Till sixth plane, there is vision of illumination or vision of light. But in the seventh plane, they actually become the light. That is, he becomes illumination itself. The other thing is divine individuality. How I look at it is, say, when we think of ourselves, we are totally different individuals with lot of different intensities, degrees of sanskaras and covering of veil and all that. So in the midst of us, if we see a perfect master, he looks alike to any other human being. But he is in a plane where he should be described as divine individuality. So because he is already totally transcended, so he is a realized personality, but still living as a human being. So that is divine individuality. That is how I look at it. So the liberation, there are three terms used: is objectless awareness, pure being, and unclouded joy. These are the terms used by Baba here. So we need to think over those and try to understand what he is actually driving us to the planes of, say, the realization there. Jai Baba.
Okay.
Two words, keep confusing me, all through. One is sanskara, the other is imagination. So, my query is, does imagination create sanskaras, or sanskaras cloud imagination? I'm very confused with this. I'll need some help on this. These two words are, coming in between the total acceptance of this that I am trying to do.
Can we start this thought next tomorrow?
Yeah, I think we are almost out of time, but we can pick up on this tomorrow. I'll make a note on Trello also so that we don't forget. Maybe tomorrow we will be reading. The show will be completely managed.
Celebrating.
Yeah, we'll be celebrating. So the show will be completely managed by the girls tomorrow. So, and given my technical challenges, maybe that's what Baba wants as well. So we'll just leave it to them. The agenda, loosely, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, is to start with a prayer and invocation, and then we actually read a chapter on love. Again, we are beating the sequence, but then we want to read a chapter on love, and then we share our experiences of the learning and the journey of the last 1 year. And from there, we go to a presentation at the end, which summarizes the theme, which is in Baba's love, right? So that's what we have planned for tomorrow, and it might, I would say, it will easily end up taking a little more than 1.5 hours. So be ready to be around for longer tomorrow. So 7:30 to 9:30 is more like it.
Can
And
I
since we are
request
celebrating,
the
everybody should have their food and their clothes and their camera.
Yes,
Everyone
sorry
should be
about.
on video tomorrow. Please, humble request. All the cameras should
Yes,
be on.
yes,
And keep your foods aside.
can I ask the Devis in the group to include a bhajan by Sanjay ji?
Yes, Namita, Sanjay ji. Of course, we will have singing and dancing. Maybe you never know. We'll go with the flow, Mama ji. We
No.
want to.
You have to.
Oh, there
Hey.
she is. I
Jai
thought she was
Baba.
not in the group.
Now we are three, Karthik. Now we are three. The woman power.
Yes,
And if
actually,
some
three, yes,
Yeah.
will
three
be
Devis.
yes.
Jai Baba.
Namita ji
Yes,
looks
Sanjay ji,
tired.
please prepare.
I think Sanjay
Sanjay
is
ji
not
has
on the
left.
call.
Karthik has
He's
missed.
left. So please get in touch with him offline and tell him so that he's ready, because he needs the music, I mean, the harmonium as well. So I think please let him know, and he'll prepare for one or two songs, and you can even help him pick the songs maybe relevant to the theme. Yeah.
No, he doesn't need help. He's okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the celebration. I see Neha there. Jai Baba, Neha. Is she there?
Jai Baba, Jai Baba. Good to see you, darling.
Thank you so much. Without you, all this wouldn't have happened. So heartfelt gratitude.
It's all Baba. It's all Baba. It's all
Yes, of
Baba.
course, it is all.
And we should
Hey,
have a
should we
song from
invite
Neha ji as well.
Vidya? We should invite Vidya too.
You.
Yes,
Yes.
I've sent a message to her and Ranga as well.
Oh, great, Ranga, long time.
So
Never showed up after that.
what is Baba's favorite food?
Dal and rice.
Okay, so tomorrow the menu is dal and rice for everybody, and Dr. Ravi will eat at midnight.
We will have it for breakfast. It will be noon for you, so it's only for you.
Karthik, just a suggestion. We had Tushar who had joined us in the beginning, so we should message him as well.
He's joining. I've already told him.
Done.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
So
Who
we'll have
else
full
was
family.
missing? Rajesh.
I met in
Rajesh has been missing.
2022